This is from Bitcoin News. It says people should talk to their financial advisors about adding a 2 to 5% allocation of Bitcoin. So let's see what they got to see, what they have to say here on MSNBC.
Carrying them, or it would have been a lot easier. Percentage of gold's market cap should Bitcoin have? What within 5 years?
You know, think about it this way. When you look at the price of Bitcoin, look at the denominator, look at USD. So I'd rather really think about the USD part of Bitcoin over USD than comparing it to gold, because
when you look at what gold's valued at, it's over USD. So it's the same.
It's the same idea. It's just I think when think about what you think about the dollar and think about what you want to replace it with. Gold in its physical form is hard to move around.
That's what I mean. Bitcoin should at least, there's no reason it shouldn't be just 10% or 20% or 30% of gold.
Right.
It should be. And, you know, poor Senator Menendez, I mean, you know, he's like walking around with these gold bars. It's like, oh, I mean, if he had Bitcoin, it would have been right on his.
I think they were hidden. I don't think he was carrying.
Oh, he wasn't actually carrying them. Or it would have been a lot easier. He'd probably still be, you know, sailing, no problem.
That's right.
Right.
Actually, cleaning up a lot of these old cases about Silk Road and Mt. Gox, I think will help. Like that helps just sort of cleanse us all of these kind of old sins, and we can move on with a clearer idea of Bitcoin as being a store of value. And a lot of the ETF holders, I think, feel that way. Also, you know, diversified returns. So the whole asset class presents a lot of opportunities.
So you're a stacker, and you think people ought to keep stacking.
I think people should really consider with their advisors to add 2 to 5% of Bitcoin.
You think like this is the kind of stuff that's on news nowadays. And I mean, it's good that it's there, because a couple of years ago, they wouldn't have been saying that. And that's part of the reason why YouTube's taken so long to really catch any sort of steam with mainstream adoption, is because these bozos on TV. So it's good to see. But at the same time, you think you should have 2% allocation to Bitcoin right now? That's what you're suggesting. And even for me, when I started this channel, when I started doing daily shows about 7 months or 8 months ago now, wow. I was saying the same thing. I was saying, like, just start with 1 or 2% of Bitcoin, but that was before the ETFs. That's when you actually had to go on the exchange. You had to buy it yourself. You had to learn how to store it. You had to figure out how to get it off the exchanges, what device to use, all that stuff. And I think at the time that was a reasonable allocation, like 2 to 5% in that environment, where you had to take some responsibility, you had to take more risk, you had to take some time to learn. Because the problem that a lot of people had in Bitcoin through the years is that they would get really excited about it. They would see the price running up, they'd buy it, and then they'd have to figure out what to do with it after that. And a lot of people lost their Bitcoin because they weren't ready to do that yet. They weren't ready for that kind of responsibility in terms of storing their Bitcoin. So that's what I said. I said, take 2 to 5%, even if, you know, you lose it, you're not going to lose all of your wealth. But it's worth getting into at this point. And that was when Bitcoin was like, I don't know, half of what it was today. But nowadays, with the ETFs, with everything that's available to people and how easy it is to get allocation and exposure to Bitcoin, I think if you have under 10%, you're really fucking this up, like significantly. Because what's your other 90% even in right now? The stock market? NVIDIA? Is that kind of the only thing that's moving at all? In the other system, it's a no-brainer to me. And if once you understand and once you go far enough into Bitcoin, you see that 10% is a very low allocation for where we are right now. So this guy says 2 to 5%. I say if you have 2 to 5%, you're in big trouble. You should be going towards 10, 20, 30% of your or more. So don't take my advice on that. That's just that's what I do. I'm definitely in the more side of things there. But we're at the point now where it's so easy. You don't have to worry about it. You can get exposure to it. And the nice thing about that is if you are using either the Bitcoin ETFs, you got MicroStrategy, you got Similar Scientific, some of the mining shares, which I wouldn't recommend. But the nice thing is you can actually buy Bitcoin through the ETF. You can hold it. You can get the exposure to that for a year. And during that year, that's when you can actually take some time, learn about Bitcoin, learn how to store it as much as you can anyways in the year, and then start selling your ETFs and buying the real stuff. So the first choice obviously is Bitcoin in self-custody, but I think that these ETFs are a really good transition, really good starting point for a lot of people to get into Bitcoin. So 1%, 2%, if you're a pansy, if you have any sort of common sense and logic in your brain, much higher than that. Nenju says, today I made a spreadsheet to document my journey in Bitcoin, and I called it Bitcoin Journey in your honor. Right on. What are you documenting there? Prices and stuff, or your total sats? Just make sure you don't keep that on a drive or anything, on a Google Drive. How's it go? Diversifying is worsifying. Yeah. And I saw a Michael Saylor video this morning. It was just a clip. But he said nobody ever got wealthy diversifying before. Nobody. And I think of it the same as like nobody got wealthy working a job, like working a 9-to-5 job. If you want to be different, if you want to be in like the 5% of people versus everybody else, you have to do things differently. So if you understand Bitcoin, if you understand where this whole thing's going, you don't want to be diversifying. You want to be putting every single ounce of energy and capital you have into this thing to really see the benefits of it in the future. And instead of, I mean, if you're working a 9-to-5 job right now, you don't want to just walk out this afternoon and start taking up Bitcoin full time. But what you can do is start positioning your life where in the mornings or at night, you start doing whatever it is you like doing. You could be drawing, you could be building websites, you could be doing people's accounting records, taxes, whatever that is, but do it in the morning and at night. And then after a year or two, you can just slowly transition out of your job and into your own business. And that's where real wealth is created. It's not by going to work or diversifying your portfolio. It's by having conviction on what you want to do, doing it, putting in the effort and the work to do it, and then allocating your capital and your energy into something you're sure about, something that's going to hold your purchasing power through the years.